Greetings again. This is Mr. Glenn of ACT Prep Chicago. I'm back with part two of our English video. Um, ACT Prep Chicago, we offer tutoring and test prep service to help students. If you would like further assistance with ACT test preparation, feel free to reach us. You can reach us by email, actprepchicago@yahoo.com, or the phone number there. And without further ado, let's get to it. We're going to be working on the English ACT Practice Test 2. Comes from the official ACT website. Um, this is the digital version of it. At the bottom of the page, towards the bottom, Practice Test 2 English. You can do timed or untimed. That's the digital version. This is the PDF version that I'm going to be working from. Same questions, though, no difference. Okay. Without further ado, let's get to it. This is part two of the English video. Part one, we finished up to 25. We'll do 26 to 50. Finish the science and the math videos also in two parts. All right, passage four. Under the Mediterranean, from the time Honor Frost made her first amateur underwater dive in the late 1940s, she was committed to spending as much time as possible exploring. She was consequently thrilled to be invited by professional divers to join the excavation of a first-century Roman shipwreck in the Mediterranean Sea in 1957. But what Frost witnessed during that excavation shocked her. The team, too, took little care with how they handled artifacts and little note of where they found them. Why is that two there? That feels a little weird. What transition word, if any, is most logical in context? I'm thinking how, no, I'm thinking however, but however and nevertheless don't work. This two doesn't work, so it should just be J. Oh, yeah, you're not going to use however. It says but, because there's the however here, but what Frost witnessed during that excavation shocked her. Then we just say what shocked her. The team took little care with how they handled artifacts and little note of where they found them. She's explaining what shocked her. No transition is needed. This is just the next idea. So we go with choice J on 26. A talented illustrator, Frost understood that the excavation of shipwrecks would benefit from the same systematic approach used on land. All right, given that all the choices are accurate, which one most effectively leads the reader from the preceding sentence to the information that follows? The preceding sentence talked about how they handled the artifacts poorly. We want a We want to lead from that until the Frost understood that the excavation shipwrecks would benefit from the same systematic approach used on land. So F wouldn't be a transition, talented illustrated. It does not connect to how poorly they handle the artifacts. Thanks to experience she's gained on formal archaeology land dig, that could work because it says Frost understood that excavation of shipwrecks would benefit from the same systematic approach she used on land, which was land digs. That's the connection. Travel without her trustworthy tape, that's no connection. That's an issue performing. The answer is choice B. Choice B. The connection really isn't to the former as much, right? Um, Thanks to experience she gained on a formal archaeological dig, the connection really is there. After talked about, she understood that the excavation of shipwrecks would benefit from the same systematic approach she used on land, and that's what they were talking about. She had gained on the experience she gained on a formal archaeological land dig. That's the connection. She teamed up with fellow underwater explorers Peter Throckmorton, never saw that name before, Throckmorton, and George Bass, and the field of marine archaeology was born. Well, this is about to start marine archaeology. Frost made her first major discovery in 1960 with the excavation of a Bronze Age Phoenician ship that dated to 1200 BCE. The historical implications of the find were significant prior to the identification of the ship and its contents. So the contents of the ship, so it's singular, it should be J. That's the right word to show possessive. That's the possessive form of its, its. It apostrophe s is it is, so that's not correct. There, we're not renaming the plural. There's for plural possession, and A does not exist, its. Held that the Brown Age commerce was dominated exclusively by my Mycenaean, I guess, Mycenaean, that's not Mycenaean, Mycenaean Greeks. In fact, uh, most of them believe that the Phoenicians didn't sail the Mediterranean at all until the Iron Age, most of who is then referring to. Most of those individual scholars, I'm leaning towards scholars because it names specifically who the them is. Practical definition of shipping. Let's look at the preceding sentence. Prevailing wisdom held that Bronze Age maritime commerce was dominated exclusively by the Mycenaean Greeks. In fact, most of them believe that Phoenicians didn't sail the Mediterranean at all until yeah, because they're not talking about most of the Mycenaean Greeks believe that Phoenicians didn't sail. Um, Prevailing wisdom held that Bronze Age maritime commerce was dominated exclusively by the Mycenaean Greek. They were also in the history with the Phoenicians. Um, so they're not talking about what they believe, they're talking about what scholars believed. In fact, scholars believe that the Phoenicians didn't sail the Mediterranean at all until the Iron Age, which I think would have been after the Bronze Age, right? Um, oh, okay. So initially, they didn't think they thought Philip Wisdom had that the Bronze Age was dominated by the Mycenaean Greeks. In fact, scholars believe that the Phoenicians didn't even sail in the Bronze Age. We come to find out they did because that's what the whole discovery was. It was a discovery of a Bronze Age Phoenician ship. Okay. So definitely see. I kind of knew that before I even answered because most of them, that's they, that's pronoun, those individuals, that's common now, but still it's kind of vague. Individuals, they is pronoun, they. Scholars is the only one who names something or someone specifically with a common noun. So because the other choices were pronouns, that was unclear, and this was very clear. We knew this was kind of it, but I read it and I read around it to make sure. The work of Frost and her colleagues fundamentally changed that understanding. Beginning in 1791, Frost directed the excavation of a 2,200-year-old Punic, or late Phoenician warship, off the coast of Sicily. The ship, which Frost surmised may have been sunk in a battle with a Roman vessel, was the first war gallery of antiquity ever discovered. The excavation took several years. Which choice is least redundant? We know here again, least redundant is going to be shortest. They make it so easy now. Before, they would not have a leading question to say the least redundant. They would just give you the answer choices. You would have to figure out they were testing redundancy. But it's easy to figure out because you got one short answer choice like F, which was one word, and all the other choices are very wordy. So we know it's F without even really checking. However, if you want to check to be sure, you can because test writers may throw tricks in there as they know students are getting used to just counting words. But they look for the redundancy. So excavation of the 2,200-year-old warship, we just read that. 22-year-old Punic, we don't need to say that again. That's redundant. Excavation off the coast of Sicily, we said that. We read that. They said it was what? Off the coast of Sicily. We already said it. No need to say it again. Began in 1971, we already said that. Beginning in 1971. Redundant. All those choices are repeating information that's already been stated. We don't need to state it again. F is the correct answer. During that time, which choice makes, wait, as Frost's team, I should read the whole sentence. As Frost's team recovered artifacts from the wreck, painstakingly recording and posting their findings along the way. My ear picks that up. When I read it as is, it's not a full sentence. During that time, as Frost's team recovered artifacts from the wreck, painstakingly recording the poetry in there. As that happened, what else happened? It didn't say what else happened. It's a phrase. Uh, Same with B. Choice B would also be a fragment. Same with C. D is the only one that offers a full sentence because they're using the verb. They're saying Frost's team recovered. They didn't say as Frost's team because if you say as something happens, you need something else to happen at the same time. But if you just say Frost's team recovered, that's a full sentence. That's sort of answers choice D. During that time, comma, there's your fragment, comma. Here comes your sentence. Frost's team recovered artifacts from the wreck. That's the sentence. Comma, here comes a fragment. Painstakingly recording and publishing their findings along the way. Perfect. 31 is key. When the excavation was complete, the remnants of the ship was set to be restored and constructed. I know that's wrong, and I know it's probably testing subject verb agreement. Why? Because what was set to be restored was the remnants. When the excavation was complete, that's my fragment comment because my sentence, the remnants of the ship. So, of the ship is a prepositional phrase that modifies remnants, but the subject was remnants. We can say the remnants was. Was is a verb that matches singular subject. Remnants is plural. It's more than one remnant, right? So we're looking for a verb that matches a plural subject. That's choice H. Remnants were, just like I showed you in part one. Like we were, you wouldn't say he were. You wouldn't say she were. So were matches plural subjects. It is the only verb in this answer choices that matches plural subjects. This is a subject-verb agreement question. Choice H is correct. For Frost and the field of maritime archaeology, all at once history was being revealed and made at the same time. I don't like that. Why can't I just say history is being revealed and made at the same time? Least redundant. We know it's D. D is the shortest one. Least redundant, they look for the shortest one. It has the less repetitive information. We don't need to say all at once. For Frost in the field of maritime, all at once is being revealed and made. All at once means at the same time. Redundant. Simultaneously means at the same time. Concurrently means at the same time. We don't need that. We can just say history was being revealed and made at the same time. 34. The writer is considering adding the following sentence to the essay. A member of the first civilian diving club in the world, Frost was fond of saying that time spent on the surface is time wasted. This sounds like something she would have said in the beginning when they were introducing who she was. First civilian diving club in the world. This might be before she became a professional and joined a team. So I'm thinking this is probably the beginning. Point A in paragraph one of my thoughts. Let's see. Point A in paragraph one. Here's paragraph one. From the time Honor Frost made her first amateur underwater diving lifeguard, she was committed to spending as much time as possible. Yeah, this goes perfectly. It's right here because the sentence said something about if she was committed to spending as much time as possible exploring underwater, that would go well with that sentence about her saying that she's saying that time from the surface is time wasted because she wanted to commit all her time to being underwater. She did not want to be on surface. Being on the first surface, she said, was time wasted. So yes, I feel like it goes perfectly right there. And the first civilian diving club in the world, um, that's when she's getting her start, right? That's probably what made them to select her, the researchers, to select her for professional work in diving. But usually you start with, well, you won't, but she started with more of a recreational or a not professional role in diving. That got to be A. I really didn't even look anywhere else because it fits so well. I'll look at point B, point C. Yeah, I will. Point, you could look if you want to point B in paragraph two, C and two, and D and three. So B and two, point B and two is right there. The information shipment is kind of famous. Had the they talking about the Bronze Age. That's good. Western and Greeks. This is not about her talking about she want to spend more time spent on land is being wasted. This is just about beliefs, and this is more like history, right? Giving us some background on the Phoenicians. Still here, same thing. Not talking about her diving and her beliefs about diving. And D is in paragraph three now. Yeah, just yeah, it fits A. Suppose the writer's primary purpose or main idea had been to explore how a particular field of study has changed over the years. Would this essay accomplish that purpose? I would say no, it does talk about that, but that wasn't the primary purpose. The primary purpose was to talk about um, Frost and how she got into diving, right? Let's see the title of it though, Under the Mediterranean. Yeah, this is mostly about Frost. I wouldn't say this is mostly about exploring how a particular felicity has changed over the years. No. Yeah, I see. Look at C because it focuses instead on Frost and some of her most important contributions to maritime archaeology. Absolutely C. What about D? It focuses instead on Frost's accomplishments prior to her work. No. It also talked about her accomplishments in maritime archaeology. It just wasn't limited to prior, which would mean before her work in maritime biology, archaeology, because we talked about her work in maritime. Maritime archaeology is underwater, right? Maritime is underwater. So definitely C for that. Okay. Moving on, passage five, a birthplace of stars. The winter night I attempted to see the famed Orion Nebula I didn't expect to succeed. I was an inexperienced astronomer peering through light-polluted sky. That sounds good. I don't think anything needs to happen to that. Yeah, I don't yeah, that just go together. I don't need to colon, I don't need a comma, I'm not shifting. Yeah, this is no punctuation necessary. 36 is out. But I was eager to test my new telescope's capabilities, and the nebula is said to be one of the greatest sights in the night sky. So I bundled up, set out my scope to cool down. Its mirrors just adjusted to the Kodiak optimum viewing and scanned for the constellation Orion. I had prepared for this night by studying constellations in my astronomy books. Orion appears as a hunter who, in some mythologies, is fighting Taurus the bull, another constellation. Even in bright skies, the telltale three stars making Orion's belt are easy to spot. I knew to follow the belt to Orion's sword, a dim line of stars extending south. The middle of these is actually not a star, but nebula, the Great Orion Nebula, a birthplace of stars. When gravity causes the gas and dust to collapse, forming stars, this is not a full sentence, so I know this as well. It's definitely C. So it says when, we know when it says when, blah, 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 that's going to be a fragment, comma, then we need a sentence. When gravity causes the gas and dust to collapse, comma, stars form. Other ones are fragments if you read them. Stars form doesn't really feel like a sentence, but it is. It's the subject stars. What do? They form. It's a two-word sentence, but it's complete. It's enough. Okay. So that's fragment, comma, sentence we're working with. The answer to that one is C. The other choices, A, B, and D, would not be complete sentences. That's another thing, too. Sometimes when you're not sure it's being tested, think about sentences versus fragments. 38. Sorry, the nebula is home to thousands of young stars. It's often called a galactic nursery. That doesn't read well because of the is home and is, no. I would say the nebula, comma, home to thousands of young stars, comma. This is a side note. Yes, J. You see that? because home to thousands of young stars is a side note, like if you go in parentheses to nebula, we can read without that. The nebula is often called a galactic nursery. Definitely J. The comma rules as non-restrictive clauses a side note. 39. The writer wants to add the following sentence to the preceding paragraph. Located 1,300 light years from Earth, the nebula is a massive cloud of gas and dust. Where will we put this? Nebula. So when you first start talking about the nebula, we want to describe it. I think it's going to be in the beginning, right? I have prepared for this night by studying constellations by astronomy books. Orion appears as a hunter. Some thousands of fighting tourists aboard another stars. Located 1,300 light years from Earth, the nebula is a massive cloud of gas and dust. Even in bright sky, the telltale three stars. No, not there. Not there. It's telling us the middle of these is actually not a type of nebula. Oh, you see, that's where they introduced the idea of nebula, so it goes a D. The middle of these is actually not a star, but nebula. I knew it didn't go there because they're talking about the constellation and they describe the constellation, right? So that the description of the constellation should go right after another constellation. Orion appears as a hunter. They describe it as, by studying constellations, Orion, then they describe an Orion constellation. It all goes together. But then they said the middle of this is actually not a star, but nebula. The Great Orion Nebula, a birthplace of stars. And then this sentence says, it's talking about the nebula. Again, you see that? So located 1,300 light years from Earth, comma, the nebula is a massive cloud of gas and dust, definitely point D. All right. I sent in my scope where the nebula should be inserted. A continuous idea nebula. That's another confirmation that we put in the right section. Inserted my lowest powered eyepiece and leaned in to look. I just made out a dull smudge. I couldn't get much improvement even when I adjusted the focuser. Which transition is most logical in this context? I'm gonna read it without the transition. I switched to a higher powered eyepiece and tried a trick I read about for viewing faint objects using averted vision. It's like she shifted, or she said so because she couldn't see it. Oh, okay. So, yeah, so. So it's cause and effect. Because she couldn't see it, she did these things. I couldn't get much improvement even so when she leaned in to look at her eyepiece, she had a small smudge. She couldn't get much improvement, meaning she couldn't see much. It was still blurry, even when I adjusted the focuser. That was my call. So what did I do? That's why so works. So because of that, I switched to a higher power eyepiece and tried it. Got it? So definitely J. The principle of averted vision states that the eye can often see distant objects better by looking to one side of them rather than directly at them. The writer is considering deleting the preceding sentence. Should the sentence be kept or deleted? I like it there because it tells you what averted vision is. Because they say colon, this was the trick she used using averted vision. Then it's going to tell us the principle of averted vision states that the eye can often see blah, blah, blah. I focus my eye on an area and then it tells you what averted vision is, the process for doing it, and then it says she did it. Right. So yeah, it seems to fit in line with what they're talking about. It elaborates on why the narrator is capable of using it. No, it doesn't tell you why she's capable of using it. It explains the principle that allowed the narrator to see exactly. That's what it did. It explains the principle, that principle of her vision that allowed the narrator to see the nebula more clearly. That's exactly what this sentence did. So we're going to keep it, and that reason matches perfectly. Let's look at the reasons for C. It adds a level of technical detail that is inappropriate? No. It digresses from the main point. It does not. It builds on the main point of the paragraph to tell you how she was able to see the object using a trick of her vision that she wasn't able to see before she used the trick. I focused my eye on an area beside the smudge, and sure enough, my peripheral vision yielded a far better view of the nebulous swirling clouds. I even saw the trapezium star cluster made by four bright young stars. Which one is the eliminated, not right? Emulated. Illuminated would be correct because illuminated means it lit it up. The trapezium. So, and the four bright stars would have given light to the trapezium star cluster. That's how she was able to see it. Emanated means came from. Illuminated by means lighted by. That's right. Emulated, H emulated means copied. J is eliminated. That's not what we're saying. We're saying it was lit up. So it's F, illuminated. Immediately by four be bright young stars nestled in the nebula like birds' eggs in a nest. So the birds' eggs, the eggs belong to the birds. We know this looks like this is good as is. Eggs doesn't own anything, so D is wrong. It is birds' eggs, so C is wrong. It should be apostrophe on birds. We're not talking about one bird. B is bird apostrophe S egg. That would be the bird's eggs if it's one bird's. But we're talking about nestled in the nebula like birds' eggs in a nest. We're not talking about any specific bird. We're just saying birds' eggs, any type of birds. It could be, So it would be A. Given that all the following sentences are accurate, which one, if added at the end, here, would best conclude the paragraph and the essay by referring back to the opening paragraph? What was the opening paragraph about? Winter night, I attempted to see the famed Orion. I didn't expect to see. I was inexperienced, and it was light polluted skies. I was eager to test the new telescope. Never said to be one of the greatest in the sky, so I bundled up, set out my scope to cool down, and scanned for the constellation Orion. That was the opening paragraph. We want a sentence that connects to that. Conclude the paragraph and the essay by referring back to the opening paragraph. Transfusion star cluster was newly discovered. No, no, no. In addition to averted vision, is also no, no, no. Averted vision didn't come later. Although my initial goal was to observe Orion's belt and sword, the constellation is also very useful as an aid to locating other. That could work because she was literally trying to locate Orion. Observing these features made my winter trek outdoors worthwhile, teaching me that a change in focus is sometimes helpful to see more clearly. Okay, we got two good choices. It's not just one that stands out. We got H and J, but we want to conclude the paragraph. So let's go back to the paragraph and see what they were talking about. The principle of averted vision states that the eye cannot see out of the eye focus my own averted vision. And sure enough, my peripheral vision yielded a far better view of the nebulous swirling clouds. I even saw the trapezium star cluster illuminated by four stars by stars. So she even saw the trapezium, and she saw Orion's belt. Would best conclude the paragraph and the essay by referring back to the opening paragraph. Although my initial goal was to observe Orion's belt and sword, that refers to the first paragraph. That's what she set out to do. The constellation is also very useful as an aid to locating other constellations. That's true. Observing these features, what features are we talking about? Features of the constellation? Observing these features made my winter trek outside worthwhile, teaching me that a change in focus is sometimes helpful to see more clearly. Mm, I think it's Jay because that's what it was mostly about. She couldn't see, and she did this trick to help her to see better. So I think it's Jay. And then it still refers back to the first paragraph because the first paragraph said it was cold and she went outside because she said she had to bundle up, I think, right? The winter night I attempted to see the right. So yeah, it still refers back to and then it says she said a minute to go out in the cold air. I bundled up. Yeah. So yeah, I would say it's definitely J. Winter trek, right? Teaching me that a change in focus sometimes helps me to see more clearly. That's what she did with the averted vision. She changed the focus, definitely J. Okay, at 45, suppose the writer's goal, primary goal, main idea, had been to write an essay about a personal experience with astronomy. That's exactly what this is. This is a personal experience, her going outside, setting up her telescopes. So it's yes, definitely. What's the right reason though? Is it A, because the narrator recounts several past adventures and challenges of, it wasn't several adventures, it was only one. Narrator describes a stargazing session, yeah, from start to finish, from setting up a telescope to observe NASA constellation is definitely B. This did not recount several past adventures. This was only one adventure, so it was not A. It's B. All right, 46. Which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? We're testing oh, I forgot the reasons. Robots rock. Pittsburgh resident Eric Singer is a technologist who creates robotic instruments. I don't need any commas there. Pittsburgh resident Eric Singer. That's just a sentence. It reads, I'm not shifting, I'm not changing, I don't need to pause. No comma rule is really satisfied. I don't need commas. The answer is just that. Don't force them. Usually, when I say musical robots, people think of humanoid robots that are playing musical instruments, Singer says. But these robots are themselves instruments, creating music in unexpected ways. One such instrument is the xylobot, a robotic xylophone. On a standard xylophone, a musician strikes bars with mallets to produce bright, sharp tones. The xylobot, however, needs no musician. Instead, the set of mallets are built in, secured to the frame of the instrument and positioned such that each mallet hovers over its corresponding bar. Beneath the instrument's frame is a mass of wires that transmit electromagnetic currents to the mechanized parts that then move the mallets to strike. Almost like a piano if you visualize it, right? Piano's got it got a thing over each key, so when you hit the key, bing, it makes that noise, bing, bing, almost like that. That's the visual I get. Anyway, I was supposed to stop a long time ago to do 47. I guess I really started visualizing. Which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? Instead, the set of mallets are built in. The set of mallets are, no, set is the subject. It should say the set of mallets modifies what's in the set, but it's a set, singular set. The set of mallets is 15 because it is a set of mallets, not a set of mallets. So it's C. Of mallets describe what's in the set, but it's one set singular. So we need a verb that matches the singular subject, which is. We don't need are. And it's the set of mallets is built in, secure to the front. That sounds weird, but it's correct. The set of mallets is built in because we hear mallets, so right after mallets, we want to put are. But remember, are is not matching mallets because mallets isn't the subject. It's matching set, and it's a singular set. So it should be C. The set of mallets is built in, secured to the frame of the instrument and positioned such that each mallet hovers over its corresponding wire. Beneath the instrument's frame is a mass of wires that transmit electricity from mechanical parts of the strike. A computer program controls the duration and strength of the currents, enabling the xylobot to play, get this, an entire song. The test doesn't usually like slang like get this. That's kind of informal language. The test doesn't usually prefer that. They just prefer keeping it simple, easy, straightforward. It would be J, right? A computer program controls the duration and strength of the currents, enabling the xylobot to play an entire song. That's simply what it's saying. It's just informational, right? When you put H, play a whole entire song, that's redundant. Whole entire, we don't need to say that. Play an entire song, wow. That's not how he's writing. He's not using all this emotional language or, he's just simply stating what it does. Singer has designed any array of robotic, oh no, 49, sorry. For the sake of logic and cohesion of this paragraph, sentence 3 should be placed. I didn't feel like anything was out of place as I was reading, but let's consider the xylophone, however, needs no musician. One such instrument is the lullaby. When on a standard xylophone, a musician strikes bars with the mouth to produce variation. Designed by however needs no musician. Instead of having a musician, right? So the mouse are built in, secured to the measurement. Yeah, it stays where it is. Definitely stays where it is. So 49 is A. Suppose the writer's primary purpose, oh, this was a short passage. Suppose the writer's primary purpose had been to describe a designer's inspiration that led to a new invention. Designer's inspiration that led to a new invention. Did it tell us why the designer made the xylobots? I don't think so. I think it just said he just created robotic experiments. They're just talking about this guy. He likes to create stuff, and he created it. Didn't tell us why. Yeah, it didn't tell us why. It just told us that he would create these robotic instruments, but didn't tell us why. So um, I would say no to this because it says suppose the writer's primary purpose had been to describe a designer's inspiration. What inspired him to a new invention? No, it doesn't tell us why he did it. It just tells what he invented. While impressive are not considered inventions because they produce no. Because while it's mentioned singers love of robotic music, it is more focused on describing his artistry and the designs of his robotic instruments. Yeah, it does mention his love, but we still don't know why he did it. It's more focused on describing his artistry, right? How he designed the designs of his robotic instruments. Yes. It provides specific details about singers' background, art. No, it suggests that singers' robotic instruments have changed the way. No, it's more like J. Yeah, J is right. Okay. All right, that's it for this section. Okay, we kind of went through that pretty fast and efficiently. And that was part two for the English. Hopefully that helped you guys if you need it. A walkthrough on how to handle these questions.